So, it's time to villain up with a new episode of Boku no Villain Academia.
There's a lot less in here, I guess, than I thought there was going to be.
Well, next time is kind of part two, so maybe?
I mean, like, here's the thing, right? It doesn't disprove anything I have already thought. It somewhat confirms that, yes, he did murder his whole family, technically. And while I don't agree, I can understand how it went that way. It also makes me wonder if he's been mentally repressing his quirk this entire time, considering the damage he's doing there in the past.
Yeah, that because that was immense.
Yeah, it seems like it's even more than he's doing now.
So, could he control it to the point of him being able to hold things normally?
What do you mean? Like what now?
Yeah, like
Like like current day? She.
yeah, current day.
I mean, before he said it used to be just that as long as his five fingers weren't touching, it wasn't a big deal. Currently, I don't know. And on top of that, we see his shoes disintegrating. So now I don't even know if it's the hands that are the problem anymore.
Oh,
Now, to be fair, there's an argument to be made that that could just be from the wear of literally fighting Gigantomachia for months without rest. Because supposedly that takes place over like a couple months before they go off to this city.
yeah.
So who knows if he had a new pair of shoes since then? Though I feel like it's more implied that it's definitely his quirk kicking in through his feet now too.
Hmm. Because that would be super dangerous then.
Oh, for sure. The question is his quirk just gonna start going on a rampage again? Or is it like is he in full control of it now that he can repress and let it fly at will? That'll be the real question before the end of the season, or perhaps even after the end of the season, depending on what they leave us on.
And that's why my question is if he's now in total control of his quirk and like can turn up the amplitude of it, could he like turn it off so he can just hold a glass of water without with all five fingers without breaking it?
That well, I mean that's the question, isn't it? If you can turn it on and off like a switch, then yeah, why not?
So he could blend into society and not be like that one weird guy who's holding his coffee cup with three fingers.
I mean, come on, man, you got to be fancy. Pinky's in the air.
Yeah, but Star,
Don't you remember the lessons from SpongeBob?
I haven't watched much SpongeBob.
It's fine. You only have to watch like the first few seasons. The rest of it's honestly not as good. But that was one of the early episodes where literally he was learning to be fancy. He literally has a mental breakdown and starts going on a rampage. And I think it's Patrick that yells to him like as he's holding somebody ready to like throw them into the ground due to this like angry rampage. I think it was about overtime or something. No, that was something. That was a different episode. But anyway, point is, Patrick yells at him like, "SpongeBob, remember, pinky's out." And you just see as he's like holding the guy over his head, the pinkies like pop out. Just like I gotta be fancy while I throw this guy into the ground. Oh god, that joke was great. Um, yeah, I mean, if he could turn it on and off, there's no reason why he couldn't do that. I don't know that he's going to be considered the weird guy that only holds it with three fingers. Granted, I don't know if that's a thing in Japan or not. I think that's more English society, but you know, or at least Western. But yeah, I don't know if that's a different thing in Japan or not, or if it has a different meaning.
So to save Toga, Twice creates a clone of Toga to get a blood transfusion from?
See, this is something I wasn't sure about, because, like, once that clone dies, doesn't the blood just turn to goo again?
Yeah, and doesn't any damage done to it cause it to disintegrate? Wouldn't like
There's a threshold,
okay.
and there's a certain threshold of damage. Twice literally didn't know if he was a clone, and if he was a clone, which clone he was. So he didn't know the threshold of damage it would take to make him potentially die. Because remember, every subsequent clone is weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
So he had no idea how much it would take before he would just turn to mud. If he was, a clone.
So maybe if the blood is outside the body.
I don't know that would work. It could work in the sense that it could be a temporary fix until her body's able to, like, regenerate the blood cells herself. But until that point, it could still just turn to mud again.
So then what was the point of creating the Toga clone?
Like I said, you could use it as a temporary band-aid, basically. The blood's still good until the original clone, or the clone of Toga dies. You could use it. It works. But once the clone does die, then you've got another problem. I would think, at least.
Mud in the blood.
Blood in the blood.
Wasn't that like some derogatory fantasy term like, oh, you mudbloods?
I want to say that's a derogatory term in Harry Potter.
Ah, okay.
Usually they use the term muggle, but I always remember mudbloods being the standout term.
Mm.
And I think that's because of the alliteration of the two words. Or am I thinking of the rhyme scheme of the two words, not alliteration. Alliteration is the two first words being the same thing.
Yeah.
First letters.
Cockney rhyming slang.
And
And
yeah, no, go ahead.
and I don't remember Gigantomachia being that big because he seemed to be stories tall at this point.
He was stories tall when we first met him. It'd been a minute. It was like end of season 4 when you first saw him.
Maybe the fact that he was just fighting earlier, like a few episodes ago, maybe they were out in the open and I didn't really have a good size comparison for him.
There wasn't much of a size comparison, no, because what little you really saw of him was him, like, against some trees. And those trees could be at any height, really.
Yeah, but seeing that he's like 4 stories tall, I'm like, can he get bigger with rage or something?
I don't know the background of his quirk, perhaps.
But
I do know that he's massive, because I remember when we first saw him, you had, like, the size comparison between him and other people, and it was just huge.
But speaking about getting larger with rage, ooh boy, Redestro!
Yeah, you said it was bad feelings, negative feelings before. In the dub, at least, or the sub, I should say, they're saying it's like stress specifically.
Ah, okay.
I don't know if that's just a sub thing, or if that's a different translation for the word. For whatever they use.
I actually looked at the wiki. I didn't read too much into it. I'm just like, so what's his quirk?
I find it more interesting that he can concentrate his stress into like an energy ball for some reason.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
I don't know how that works.
He is going to take this. Oh crap, what was it like? My love, my anger, and all of my sorrow.
Yeah, but that's still in the hand. That's not like an energy ball. That's like energy focused in the hand itself.
And the finger.
Oh, the middle finger.
And I just found that Shigaraki found some very interesting ways to grab onto him.
It wasn't even ways to grab onto him. Like at this point, like even just a finger touch is enough to trigger the decay. Although I do find it interesting that it's not spreading the way it was on the others he's fought. Like when we saw him taking down Fodder earlier. It's not spreading the same way on Redestro, and I'm curious why.
Maybe it has to do with Redestro's quirk.
Maybe? I don't know. Like, you'd have to get down to the basics of how the quirk works. Like, it says, fuck it, I'm gonna look it up right now specifically. Hold on. Redestro quirk. Give me an idea of what his quirk actually does again. All right, let me see here. Quirk. Allows him to store up any fear, anger, and or frustration he feels converted to raw power. Yeah, that's a weird way to put it when we called it stress. Okay. When Redestro accesses the ability, his size and strength increase significantly. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, see what I meant by negative emotions?
I see it, yeah. Though they simplify it to stress in the sub, at least. Which I don't think is a better definition, honestly, if this is accurate.
I don't know if the manga is different in its terminology.
It could be. Again, it could just be a different translation for the words or a different reading for it. Here's what I'm curious about, right? Because from what I'm seeing... Oh, it didn't even give me the image. Because we see like that black scrawl or whatever it is going over top of his face, like his body, like a shell almost.
Yeah.
Like on his head, it doesn't look like it's fully consuming him or whatever. Like his mouth is still free.
But he's only 80%.
Yes, but my point is whatever that stuff is that's surrounding or encasing his body, right? Is that like a shell? And therefore not actually part of his body? Is that why it's not spreading to like the rest of him the way it should? Because it's not actually something that can decay normally?
Yeah, maybe it's more energy. Yeah, like an energy shell.
Again, I don't know if I would call it energy. I don't know what it is at this point. It's weird. Because again, like most times you consider energy, it's not opaque like that. It's like see-through. Like a Super Saiyan aura or whatever. Like this is encasing him like an armor, which is weird.
But wouldn't you say the Kamehameha is energy?
Yes, but it also glows and is more or less transparent. Like at that point, it's condensed, and isn't completely transparent.
So maybe
But again, you're not wearing it like a static armor either.
So maybe, like, not trying to prove you wrong, but maybe this is condensed energy.
Yeah, but I just don't see how it's going to stay in one place, right? Like energy is the idea of things constantly moving. Like you've got energy moving. This doesn't seem like it has that.
Well, maybe we'll see more of the fight next week.
Maybe it'll explain it better. I don't know, because it doesn't really explain it here either. Like even on the wiki, it doesn't really explain what that is.
Huh.
Unless it has something to do with like his equipment, right? Like maybe he has some kind of equipment in his pants or something. Or maybe it's the clothes themselves that help provide this armor.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the best way I would think about it. I would think it would have to be some kind of like piece of equipment to do that, because it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't really make a lot of sense otherwise. Then again, you're also transforming stress into outright energy balls, which doesn't make any goddamn sense either. No, here where like it talks about 80% liberation. Increases his body bulk considerably and coats himself in a darkness by releasing 80% of his stockpiled stress. So yeah, it just calls it a darkness. It doesn't say what it is. I don't know. I'm curious how this fight goes. Obviously, Tomura wins. Like you already know this,
Obviously.
which kind of unfortunately ruins the stress of the moment. Um, yeah, we get the background. He had a very abusive father who did not like the fact that his mama went off to be the hero and didn't come back. Apparently, she's also like not a great cook. Not that Shimura is not a good cook, or maybe only slightly good because she was getting a 6 on that score on that point score.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently, Sunny Jim there is very upset that Nana left him and now hates all heroes because they destroy families.
Do you think if his father was less abusive, he might have turned out better? Or with a destructive quirk, he was always destined to be a villain?
I don't know. Because here's the thing, right? Throughout this villain section, we've been seeing how quirks can influence personality, right? Toga with her blood sucking twice with his brain hang-ups, mental hang-ups. Um, I feel like once his quirk had come up, I don't know what would happen or how his personality would develop from there if he had a loving family. It's very hard to say in that regard. Um, it's a it's a it's hard to say. There's a lot more things to juggle in that scenario rather than just if his dad wasn't a dick, would it have been fine? Would he have discovered his quirk differently, perhaps in a less catastrophic way? Potentially, yes. Heck, had he noticed the tennis ball originally that it was throwing for his dog, maybe then.
Yeah.
But that did not seem to be noticed at all.
And I found it very interesting censoring where it disintegrates into a bloody mass of pieces.
That's the weirdest part because it shows them turning into like essentially dust. Like they go gray and break apart, but then they're bloody pieces on the ground. Like no longer stone looking.
Maybe, like I said, it's just censoring.
It could be censoring. It's a weird way to do it.
Hmm.
I feel like it's also a weird way to like I don't know how much of this is a retcon for how Shigaraki's quirk works. Because up until this point, it's literally been the idea of everything just outright decays and turns to dust. Whereas in this flashback, we see them essentially turn to stone, break apart, and then return to like being actual organic matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I want to know how or if this type or way of his quirk is going to develop again.
And if it is,
Because otherwise, it is a very massive retcon onto how his quirk works.
and if it is censored for the anime, how gory is it in the manga?
Well, like here's my biggest thing, right? Like the only way those hands survive is if they do it this way,
Oh,
because otherwise they would just be dust.
so the bloody chunk is the real way?
I have to assume that's how the hands are still there for Shigaraki to have them later as an outfit. Like the other literal question would then become like, why did it work that way then, and why does it work this way now?
Would you say he unintentionally killed his family members, but intentionally killed his father?
I feel like for sure the father one, I don't know about the unintentional bit. Keep in mind these are kids, right? And even then, my other biggest problem was that like and maybe this like with what he does like a couple seconds later, it's not as important, but like he only grabbed like when I saw it happen, it's like, oh, the dog died. Cool. The court came out. I mean, not cool that the dog died, but like
Yeah.
cool now I'm seeing it happen, like the Quirk
Dio,
awakening.
you're being.
Literally, that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, cool. Horikoshi pulled a JoJo, pulled an Araki, and killed a innocent animal to prove that it wasn't even to prove that the character was evil. It's just like an accident.
You said cool, a dog died. I'm like, you're turning into Dio.
I didn't mean that way. I meant cool. Now I'm seeing how the Quirk is triggered, like activating. Like,
I know, but just like, cool, a dog died. Uh,
why couldn't it be a cat?
and
Anyway,
and it was a
now the cat people
corgi,
hate me.
and it was a corgi too.
I have mixed feelings on corgis, I guess. Not that they're bad dogs, it's just like I just don't like the look of them, I guess, personally. And maybe that's just from overexposure from the Doge meme.
That's actually a Shibu Inu.
Shut up. You're ruining my sense of reality.
Well, snap back to reality.
How about I snap you into dust? Just pull a Thanos with this.
Please do not do that.
Half of you is dead.
Oh
You didn't need those legs, did you?
no! Now,
Or your intestines.
now I can't have a stand.
Your stand is literally just a pair of legs that lets you walk.
Be sure to check out our movie makers about legs.
I wish we had watched JoJo when we had done that, so we could say that he has a wheelchair stand. Anyway, the dog dies. Here's the part where I get slightly confused in that he reaches out for his sister, and he doesn't touch her skin at all. He just touches their clothing. But apparently that's more than enough.
Well, I'm just saying this. You don't want an undressed young child. So
Well, you saw that she had like clothes underneath that sundress she was wearing.
now
You
you're
know?
poking holes in my logic.
Yeah, that one didn't make sense. Then again, he's literally touching the ground and causing it to decay into an earthquake-like scenario. So, yeah, shit just straight up isn't making sense with where his quirk starts at and to where it goes. Like it almost feels like it's two different quirks.
Hmm.
And I don't know how accurate that is.
Well, maybe next week because he's meeting up with One for All next week. I mean, All for One
Over one.
next week. And then maybe All for One will teach him how to refine it into something less chaotic.
Maybe. I was gonna say, and this kind of gets thrown in the dirt now with what's going on currently. Like if we go back to what the fight that's going on outside of these flashbacks, I was gonna say maybe there was some kind of built-in limiter in those hands on what his quirk did.
Potentially.
Or it could be that it is two separate quirks, and All for One took his original quirk and gave him something else.
Huh.
Because yeah, like what is going on there compared to what he currently does looks way too different. And I'd love to understand, or at least have a reason as to why. This still doesn't destroy my theory that All for One may have set something up like this. Like he may have been pulling strings in the background for shit to happen. Because they do reveal that Shigaraki was what? He was 5 years old.
Yes.
And his quirk hadn't developed yet. So he was a late bloomer, you might say. That said, I'm curious what other quirks every other member of his family had. But I guess we'll never know now.
And going back to JoJo, something you mentioned last week, Trumpet's mask, yes, that does look like a stand head.
I mean, we get to see Spinner try to come out and do a thing, but he doesn't really do a thing. Also, I was also right. It doesn't just inspire them; it does improve them mentally and physically. It's not just, oh man, we're gonna be better now because he said so. It's, oh shit, you A, have to trust him for this to work, and B, it literally does improve your body's like physical and mental strength.
More so than I thought. I thought it was only a slight improvement, but it seems
It
that
seems to
like
be bigger.
yeah, it seems like the more confidence you have in him, the more of a boost you get, and maybe also volume also has something to do with it.
Could be. Either way, Spinner doesn't have shit right now unless something happens.
Yeah.
I mean, he even calls it out. It's like, you're not going to do nothing. All you can really do is stick to walls and have scales. That's about it.
Well, I'm just saying he could use the stick to walls to be a ninja and come at him from unexpected angles, but then again, he's probably not quick enough to bounce around.
Probably not. And then on top of that, the dude's just got sheer numbers working for him, and he could surround himself. You literally saw him crawling on a wall, and somebody else literally popped out of the building.
Right.
Spinner just still doesn't feel like there's much going on there. And I'm curious if he ever does get some kind of quirk boost, what in the hell it would actually be.
Hmm.
Like, he would be an interesting one, actually. What if his quirk is misdiagnosed? And they're like, oh, he's just a lizard man. And it's like, oh no, he's a dragon man.
Oh, fire breathing.
Yeah, kind of like that other dragon girl that we saw before. Although where she can shapeshift back and forth, he's kind of stuck in a permanent mix of man and dragon.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. There's not really much else going on. Um, you already mentioned the preview for the next one, where he meets up with All for One, and we'll see how that goes down, and if there's any other shit going on there. I am super curious if there's more background going on, because I'd like to know how All for One even finds this kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it for this episode. There's not much more speculation I can come up with, nor anything else I want to like poke with a stick and say this doesn't. What is this?
Yeah. I'm just wondering how Toga will survive this. Like, will we cut back to her to see that she's good and then she, like, kills the clone and saying, like, that's more beautiful? No, no, does she get jealous of her own clone and kills it?
Let me check something.
What are you checking?
I wanted to see exactly how Compress's quirk works. Because if they're in like what's the word I'm looking for here? If they're in like one of those like those freezing pods, I'm blanking on the word.
Oh,
Cryostasis.
okay.
If they're in when they get compressed to the marble, if they're in like a cryostasis, they can just keep Toga in that like not position, but like in that state for however long they need to. Bloody compress his own body. It does not say. Yeah, it does not say whether they're stuck in a cryostasis or not. So I don't know. If his quirk doesn't work that way, which I would assume that after reading that bit, it would have been updated with the manga to say if that it did that. I don't know. Outside of that blood transfusion actually working, regardless of the sense it doesn't make.
I'm I'm just reading a little bit about Spinner, and he learned how to drive by playing Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, why not? He's a video game boy.
I actually did hear somebody avoided a traffic accident due to them playing, I think it was Grand Theft Auto, is something like that. So they were able to think and react and do something unexpected fast enough that they avoided causing like a larger accident. Yeah, that was like at least like 8, 10 years ago, maybe longer. But until next time when we get more into Shigaraki's past.